Georgia O'Connor here. Big up Julius. Ring IQ. Welcome to the relay.
Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of what is to be her WBA junior middleweight showdown with Terry Harper, Cecilia Brkhus says she's happy to be back with trainer Jonathan Banks. On again, off again relationship with Jonathan Banks. She was with him for a long while. She was. Then she swapped him out for Abel Sanchez. That partnership didn't last long. In truth, Jonathan was always a better fit for Cecilia Brkhus than Abel Sanchez, based on her style of boxing. Things have been good, Brkhus said in an exclusive interview for Pro Box TV News, branded top toe-to-toe in Kronk clothing. We started off in Detroit at Jonathan Banks' gym. I love those guys, very supportive. We had a great camp over there. We then came here to London to spar some of the girls and get rid of some of the jet lag. I'm just incredibly grateful to share the ring with someone like Terry Harper. I'm really excited. She's very well-rounded, got great conditioning, and is a good boxer. I think it is going to be a great fight if I don't say so myself. After a long career, this is one of the highlights. I did have my homecoming in Norway. I fought on HBO, and I have had a great career, but to fight on this show with so many good fighters is incredible. To do this at the end of my career is so cool. I'm a big fan of Katie and Chantel too. It is going to be an amazing fight. Cecilia acknowledges that the sun is setting on her career. She's going to be fighting Terry on the undercard of Taylor versus Cameron very soon. I actually got stuck up in Big Bear for months during the pandemic, Brkhus explained. It was rough. Before I took the fight with McCaskill, I had no idea there was a pandemic coming. It wasn't so hard dealing with the defeat itself. It was more the people missing in my camp due to restrictions and other decisions. I was pretty much alone during that. It was at high altitude too. You really have to watch the medical side of that when you are training at high altitude. I was on a downhill path. I was working with Abel Sanchez, but sometimes different styles fit for different fighters. I worked with Jonathan before because he was just such a good guy. He's made so many world champions too. I have so much respect for him. But it is also that I think our styles match. His style of training works for me. I asked him to take me back, and he was like, okay. She's 100% right. Cecilia Brkhus is a cerebral boxer, a more cerebral kind of boxer than you customarily see Abel Sanchez cornering. Abel's better with action fighters. He's a bit of an action trainer. Think about it. Murat Gassiev, Gennady Golovkin, all hard punchers and all action fighters, whereas Cecilia Brkhus at her best, she's more of a boxer than a puncher. It took some years to get over that time, to be honest with you, but I'm over it now. Put my team back together and I'm good to go. I'm excited for people to see the real me again. Not sad or tired, just me. I'm just incredibly grateful to share the ring with someone like Terry Harper next week. If you asked me about an event like this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it was possible. Brkhus has seen both sides of the fence. The female side of the sport transforming during her reign. We are allowed to fight in the Olympics now, Brkhus said. During my time, women were not allowed to fight in the Olympics. We were basically told to get out of the gym back then. It has been really weird to be on both sides of this. It's so surreal. I still have to rub my eyes at times and think, is this really happening? It's incredible to see so many good fighters right now, and Cecilia Brkhus was before Katie Taylor and Clarissa Shields went undisputed, before Jessica McCaskill, obviously, before Franchon Cruz, Chantel Cameron, Alicia Baumgartner, there was Cecilia Brkhus, who reigned as an undisputed champion for a long time, racked up approximately 24 successful title defenses. She faltered on her 25th. Came very close to breaking Joe Louis's record. But now she's going to be confronted with Terry Harper, who, you'll excuse me for saying so, is in top physical condition, peak form. As a junior middleweight, Terry was always a very strong puncher. She always had very generous physical dimensions for a super featherweight. I will admit that I didn't envision she'd climb as high as junior middleweight. I figured she'll probably top out at welter. Welter or junior welter? Didn't really figure that she'd go as high as junior middle, 154 pounds, let alone win a title there, but that's what she did. Because Terry's been in so many noteworthy fights, it feels like she's been around for ages. She only has 15 pro bouts, that's it, 15 professional contests, sporting a professional record of 13 wins with 1 loss and 1 draw. She doesn't have a whole lot of fights per se, but the fights that she has had have all been against noteworthy opponents. They have. Then WBC champion Eva Wahlstrom, unbeaten Katharina Thanders, Vivian Obanoff, who once beat Natasha Jonas as well, the slugfest that Terry had with her, the Baumgartner fight, and the Hannah Rankin fight for what was Hannah Rankin's WBA title. You never would have known that Terry Harper was the fighter moving up in weight from super featherweight all the way up to junior middle.
Yeah.
Terry looked sensational.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to look even better. I've been a fan of Cecilia Brkhus for many, many years. I knew about this fighter long before women's boxing became what it is today. That being said, this is not going to end well for Cecilia. Been a fan of Terry Harper since before she signed to Matchroom. If you can believe that, back when it was Steffi Bull promoting all her shows and making those fights happen.
Terry's special.
She's also 15 years younger than Cecilia Brkhus. She's really filled out at junior middleweight. She's not killing herself to make super feather anymore. She still retains speed. More speed than your average junior middleweight because she's not your average junior middleweight. She's a smaller fighter that moved up in weight, that still has power and still has snap on her punches to add to that power. She's got speed, mobility, and she's always been a good boxer. She's always been coordinated. This is a dangerous fight for Cecilia Brkhus.
Sorry to say, but it is.
They have re-entered into a partnership with Jonathan Banks, but ultimately Father Time has caught up to Cecilia, and I don't think she's going to be able to keep up with Terry.
Nope.
She may lose every round, and because Terry Harper has only grown stronger as a junior middleweight, Cecilia might get stopped.
She might get knocked out.
It's never happened before, but there's a first time for everything. Men's lightweight news. Derek James, the trainer to Frank Martin, shoots down a Martin versus Keyshawn Davis fight, saying, "What's the point of that fight?"
What was the point in fighting Michelle Rivera?
It's the same dichotomy. Battle of the unbeatens. Unbeaten fighter versus unbeaten fighter in the men's lightweight division. Is there something in Keyshawn Davis that Derek James doesn't like?
And being with Top Rank might be it.
With the two jawing back and forth in the public eye, Frank Martin and Keyshawn Davis, Derek James, Martin's trainer, becomes incredulous whenever he hears more of Davis's outlandish callouts. Although he wholeheartedly respects Davis, who sports a professional record of 8 wins with no losses and 6 knockouts, and what he brings to the table, the newly crowned trainer of the year is convinced the end result of their clash would be detrimental to the 24-year-old's career. For those not already aware, Keyshawn Davis is some years younger than Frank Martin. What's the point in that fight? Questioned James during a recent interview with ES News. Even for him, why would Top Rank do that when they're trying to build him up? Say he loses the fight, he's done. They don't want to deal with him anymore. They're gonna let him go. They're gonna cut him because they did something that you wanted.
They might.
They might not. Depends on the situation. Robisi Ramirez lost his pro debut. Amateur standout Robisi Ramirez. Vasil Lomachenko, he lost to Orlando Salido in his second fight.
Yeah.
They didn't cut those fighters.
I think it depends on the situation, to be honest.
So let's be honest. Do you think Derek James gives 2 fucks if Top Rank cuts Keyshawn Davis?
No.
Is that what you think he's really worried about?
No.
As for Davis, his propensity for mentioning Martin has become both nauseating and befuddling for Coach James. All in all, the renowned trainer urges the young up-and-comer to take his brazen remarks down a notch. While James understands his desire to make an immediate splash at this stage, he concludes that Davis should take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The promoters have a plan. The promoters are there to build you, develop you, get the right opponents. That's not the right opponent no matter how bad he wants it. There's no benefit to anybody. Who's going to pay for it?
Derek is right about some things, but not others. I mean, if you were okay to fight Michelle Rivera, why wouldn't you be okay to fight Keyshawn Davis?
Maybe it's because Michelle Rivera was with the PBC and Keyshawn Davis isn't. He's with Top Rank, and maybe it's because Michelle Rivera don't come from the same kind of amateur background as Keyshawn.
Doesn't have the same ceiling as Keyshawn.
Don't play the wise old sage with me. You know that just as much as you know about the politics, that Michelle Rivera is not Keyshawn Davis.
Keyshawn is something else.
Different gravy. There have been a lot of call-outs in the men's lightweight division. You know, Keyshawn's been calling out Frank Martin, and Andy Cruz, he's been calling out Keyshawn.
A lot of call-outs.
Most won't result in a fight due to the political boundary lines that divide the men's lightweight division. Andy's with Matchroom, Keyshawn is with Top Rank, Frank is with the PBC.
You know how it goes.
These fights aren't about to happen. Maybe sometime down the line, but it sounds a lot like what Derek is saying is that is a fight that needs to be built. Here and now, it doesn't make sense to do it.
But he's making it about Keyshawn, and that's what's disingenuous. You aren't concerned with the trajectory of Keyshawn Davis's career. Your concern is Frank Martin.
And when you say what you're saying, it sounds to me like you're more concerned about Frank and what might happen to Frank than what happens to Keyshawn, because Keyshawn's younger than Frank Martin. I think Frank's about 28, 29 years old, whereas Keyshawn's only 24. If he suffers a loss, it ain't the end of the world.
But your guy?
Your guy's almost 30 years old, your guy is.
Ain't no spring chicken.
He isn't. He may be one of several unbeaten guys and up-and-comers in the men's lightweight division, but he's hardly the youngest one among them. He's the same age as Gervonta Davis, give or take a few months.
Fight's not gonna happen anyway.
No time soon, anyway, if it ever happens at all. But I don't think Derek James's real concern is how this plays out for Keyshawn. His concern is Frank Martin, and he does sound concerned.
Annoyed.
Somebody's putting his unbeaten up-and-comer on the spot? He doesn't like that. Just in keeping with the theme of men's lightweight news, two-division champion, now turned lightweight, Shakur Stevenson says he'll beat the hell out of Isaac Cruz.
Isaac and his father didn't want to know. Remember, they were ordered by way of the WBC to take on Shakur, and they walked away from that order.
Before being forced to a showdown against Shuichiro Yoshino, Shakur Stevenson did his best to lure one of the lightweight division's more established stars into the ring, Isaac Cruz. However, after making it painfully clear that Stevenson wasn't in their immediate plans, the former Olympic silver medalist turned his attention elsewhere. Initially, Team Cruz remained mum on why they opted to go in another direction, but after being bombarded with questions, Team Cruz revealed that Stevenson's defensive approach would lead to a quote-unquote boring fight.
Bullshit.
What's interesting about these two guys is that Isaac Cruz actually has the right style for the job. He does. He's a pressure guy, whereas Shakur is a pure boxer.
Isaac's got the right style, but he's not on the same level as Shakur.
That if young Shakur is, say, an A-level pure boxer, Isaac would be more akin to a B- to a C+ pressure fighter.
He's got the right style, but he's still missing some ingredients.
Pitbull don't want no smoke, said Stevenson on his Instagram Live. I've been right here in front of everybody. I don't run.
It is true, as Stevenson alluded to, he's upped his aggression in recent years, even when tasked with facing a bigger man in Yoshino.
Shakur is evolving into a fighter that can toggle through two different base styles. Characteristically, he's a pure boxer, a completely defensively minded fighter, but his last couple of fights, he's been looking more and more like a boxer-puncher.
The really good fighters, the really good ones, they often have two base styles, not just one.
Shakur is stepping into his punches more and showing more spite than he did at the start of his still very young career. He's been less pure boxer and more boxer-puncher.
All in all, Stevenson's need to face Isaac Cruz stemmed from his desire to have his championship wishes placated. Yet with several of the division's big names deciding against facing Stevenson, the 25-year-old slithered his way up the rank standings.
You can't hold it against Shakur Stevenson because it doesn't look like anybody's in any hurry to fight him, Isaac Cruz included. They said something along the lines of Stevenson is boring and they'd rather face Vasyl Lomachenko, knowing that a Vasyl Lomachenko fight wasn't about to happen.
Just a lot of bullshit.
They didn't want to fight Shakur Stevenson in spite of that order that came down by way of the WBC. And Isaac Cruz, ever since losing that fight to Gervonta Davis...
Guy lost a goddamn fight, but you'd have thought that he won the way he's been carrying on. He's become a prima donna. He ain't got no time for nothing or nobody.
Turned down an offer from Golden Boy to fight Ryan Garcia. Turned his nose up at Michelle Rivera, who ended up fighting Frank Martin. Didn't want to fight Shakur Stevenson.
Shakur, who said, I would have beat the hell out of him. He's too little. Little dude can't do nothing with me.
Isaac Cruz's whole claim to fame is going the distance with Gervonta Davis in a fight that he lost, not a fight that he won.
And it's not like he's gone on to start headlining his own shows since then. He hasn't.
Shakur Stevenson has, several times, and he's drawing well in his native New Jersey. He's putting up good viewership ratings on the ESPN platform, whereas Isaac is doing what?
Wow.
Waiting for Gervonta Davis to give him a call?
They're both in a protection program.
They don't want some other guy's fighters spanking Isaac Cruz and making it look easy, because if they do, it reflects poorly on Gervonta Davis, who struggled with it.
Isaac himself and his team, they don't seem to have any high-profile fights on the horizon. They haven't been in any since they fought Gervonta Davis.
Sadly, this is yet another fight in the men's lightweight division that won't happen. Just like Frank Martin versus Keyshawn Davis, Stevenson versus Cruz.
Forget about it.
And finally, in men's middleweight news ahead of this weekend's fight, I want Charlo and Lara. Janibek hopes working with Buddy McGirt will lead to big unifications in the middleweight division, and I advise that Janibek not hold his breath because he's not going to get Lara, and he's not going to get Charlo. He's supposed to be defending his newly obtained WBO title for the second time against Canada's own Stephen Butler in a fight that really isn't worth spending a lot of time on. He's going to knock Stephen Butler out. Every time Stephen Butler steps up, he gets knocked down.
There's your breakdown, all right?
What the people at Top Rank need to do is get a move on when it comes to that Falcao fight. Esquiva Falcao, an unbeaten up-and-comer from Brazil, amateur standout, who's supposed to be fighting for the newly vacated IBF title that Gennady Golovkin left behind. That's what they need to work on, and the reason they need to work on that is because as soon as you put that title in Falcao's hands,
that's as soon as Janibek can challenge him for it in a fight of some substance.
Battle of unbeaten champions on the Top Rank side of things, as Top Rank is involved in the career of Esquiva Falcao. Initially, Esquiva was supposed to be fighting Australia's own Michael Zarafa for the newly vacated title,
but Team Zarafa walked away, elected to pursue a title shot by way of the WBA instead, with Arislandi Lara.
Michael Zarafa had the good fortune of being in position to fight for either the IBF title or the WBA title, and they were in talks with Esquiva Falcao to fight for the IBF title, but due to a miscommunication, according to Team Zarafa, they decided to walk away, fight Lara instead, just for the Arislandi Lara people to pay Michael to step aside.
You heard that right.
They paid Michael Zarafa to step aside so that Arislandi Lara could fight Danny Garcia instead.
What?
Now that fight is happening.
Zarafa's got no title shot.
Don't know what the hell is going on with Esquiva Falcao, but as stated, the people at Top Rank need to get a move on when it comes to that fight, because as soon as they make it,
as soon as a champion is crowned, that's as soon as they can make a unification match later on this year. Janibek is running a scarcity of opponents. He has the misfortune of campaigning in this era's middleweight division.
It's been better.
He's fighting Stephen Butler this weekend, and nobody's gonna run home and call their mother because he's fighting Stephen Butler.
Nobody. He's not going to make waves with a fight like that. In truth, an Esquiva Falcao unification match might fly somewhat low on the radar as well, but it will help to add to Janibek's profile and his overall dominance over this division if he can pick up more than one alphabet title. Because I'll tell you right now, he's not getting Lara in the ring, and he's not getting Jermal either. Lara's fighting Danny Garcia, and Jermal Charlo's career is fighting rigor mortis.
Because it's all but dead.
Man hasn't fought in 2 years. He hasn't fought since the summer of 2021.
Literally has a mandatory challenger in the queue in Carlos Adames on the same side of the street as him, boxing under the same promotional banner, and for whatever reason, the WBC won't strip him, they won't order the fight, they won't do nothing.
And Janibek thinks he's going to be able to get him in the ring? He isn't. He can call him out as much as he likes. Demetrius Andre did.
Matchroom offered him a lot of money.
$7 million to do that unification match. $7 million to do that fight on their side of things, and they didn't have any luck, so I sincerely doubt that Janibek will succeed where they failed.
He won't.
We know what Lara's doing. Aging Lara, who's pushing 40, a remnant of the previous era.
An old relic.
Janibek's not going to be able to get him in the ring either. The best bet for Janibek is to pursue Esquiva Falcao if he becomes IBF champion, and I think he can. I think he will, but I think Top Rank needs to get a move on.
What's the latest on that fight?
Where are we with that thing? They can stage it sometime over the summer months, say in late July, early August, do the unification match between the champions sometime in the fall or winter months.
They can do it.
Janibek didn't look good in his last fight, but he'll look all right in this one. He's going to knock out Stephen Butler.
And we'll see what happens next.